Hey there, everybody. So we shall just go ahead and wait until people start showing up, and we will just see how it goes. Hopefully, eventually here we can get a better camera for live streaming, because this one's kind of terrible. There we go. So we're going to go ahead and just check a couple things, make sure everybody knows this is going on, and as soon as people start filing in, we'll get started. Ah, there we go. Starry Grillish says hi, and Haley Miller, hey guys from Cine. Hello. Hi, everybody. Hope you guys are doing all right. So, how are you guys doing? How's everything going with this whole crazy time we're all in? Your sub count right now is a certain number. Okay, I'll check it out later. Sorry, Girlish, I'm good. Just got home from work. Awesome. Glad you're good. And glad you just got home from work. It's certainly nice when you get home and can just kind of take it easy a little bit. Irvin says hi. Hello. We're doing the best we can considering, well, that makes sense. See, it's completely understandable. Sorry, Girlish, you work in a grocery store. Okay, so that makes sense. No, grocery stores are absolute necessities right now. I hope it's not too crazy where you work with everybody mobbing everything and sweeping the shelves. At least that's what it's been like over here. Hannah Frampton says hi, hi. So for this little get together, we are just connecting with everybody and seeing if there's anything anybody thinks we can do to improve the channel thus far, and getting any sort of video requests, because, you know, we always want to hear what everybody has to say, see if there's anything anybody would like to see, all that kind of stuff. Sorry, Girlish, it was a while ago, but it's calmer now. Oh, that's good. Glad that it's calmer now and that it's not as crazy. Over here, the toilet paper comes in and 10 minutes later it's gone. It's like it's the zombie apocalypse or something, the way people are behaving about the toilet paper. It's like, guys, the toilet paper is not going to save you from the coronavirus, I hate to tell you. But, you know, leave some toilet paper for the rest of us. Yeah, just recently in our state, we received a stay-at-home order, so everybody's staying home unless they're absolute necessary personnel. Hannah Frampton, I love the channel. I think you speak in a very informative way. Oh, I thank you. We appreciate that. Sorry, Girlish. Yeah, I'm more scared of the people than the virus. Yeah, some people right now are completely panicking and acting like crazed people, and it's just not helpful. It doesn't accomplish anything other than to cause more problems when people panic like that. That's why, we're taking appropriate precautions. We're washing our hands 20 seconds. We always did that anyway, but, we're making sure that anytime we touch anything that we've washed our hands extra carefully. We're only leaving to go to the grocery store or to walk our dogs out in the area where there literally are no people because it's empty. It's just the middle of the nature. So, other than walking the dogs and going to the grocery store, we don't leave the house. My husband leaves to do his job because he's necessary personnel right now. He works at the local county fixing all of their heavy equipment, so all the machines they need to be able to do their jobs and all the police cruisers and other things, all of the important vehicles for the emergency personnel. He works on those, so he's necessary. But they're not doing more than 10 people at a time at work. So he works a few days and then he's off for a week, and then he works for a few days and he's off for a week again. So it's kind of a hectic schedule right now, but on the bright side, at least he gets good benefits, so he continues to get paid. So we're not in dire straits, which is nice. And, we really feel for everybody out there who is in dire straits right now because of this shutdown of everything. And, we hope everybody's able to stay afloat. Starry Girlish, yeah, I did bagging for a few days and it's awful. 0 out of 10. Do not recommend. Yeah, I would bet. That would just be terrible. People are just buying out things that they don't even need. Like, I've seen people buy stuff and then they're talking about how they don't actually even like what they're buying. They're just buying it just in case. And I'm like, why would you buy stuff you don't even like? Leave it for the people who want it. Hannah Frampton, some people acting kind of selfish, like with the toilet roll, etc. We should be helping each other more. Agreed. We should. We should be coming together as a global community to aid others, not acting selfish and taking all the supplies. Panic buying doesn't do anything for anybody. CNE Secret, we have the stay-at-home order and everything is delivering. I got car side service at the liquor store even. It's crazy. Yeah, we get a lot of stuff delivered too. I mean, we do go to the grocery store for certain essentials that we can't really get delivered in a reasonable time frame and that are perishable. But other than that, we really don't go very often. It's, kind of once in a while because we've always had at least 30 days of supplies on hand just in case, there was ever anything going on for whatever reason. I mean, we do live in a desert, so, it's a good idea. But, it's also just the fact that we tend to be very prepared for disaster. So, we don't need to go very often. It's only the perishable items that run out that we have to go get more of every so often. So we haven't had to really go to the grocery store in like 2 to 3 weeks for anything. I work county government too. We're mostly working from home, but go in once a week. Yeah. Yeah, my husband ends up going in, I think it's 2 to 3 days at a time, and then he's off for a week or two, and thankfully they're counting it as administrative leave, so it's all paid time off, and he's not having to use his own PTO in order to do all of this. But yeah, we're very thankful that he's able to continue to work right now. Hannah Frampton, I'm very glad I can still work. Would be so in debt by now otherwise. Feel so bad for people out there struggling with money. Agreed. We are so grateful that my husband is able to keep working. And unfortunately, I had just started looking into apprenticeship programs for different work and things like that. And now all of that has been kind of put on a standstill. But, once this emergency is over and things have stabilized again, we can start looking at that again, because we're trying to find some part-time work to help supplement our income. Because now that my daughter is old enough and because my husband works a night shift, I can work a day shift part-time, and that would just help supplement everything. But yeah, kind of just have to sit and wait and see. Jen Scriven, seeing the best and worst sides of humanity right now. Yes. Yeah, we're seeing people's true colors come out in an emergency. That's been our experience anyway. And people tend to do one of two things. Either they panic and start acting selfish, or they start being helpful and trying to actually aid other people. So it tends to show you who people really are when the crap hits the fan, as they say. Sini, I'm just happy I stocked up like a week before Coronapocalypse. Yeah, same. We always have, like I said, at least 30 days of stuff on hand because we're just always prepared. But yeah, it was a relief to know that we weren't going to run out of toilet paper when everybody started panic buying it like crazy, because we always have an extra one thing of toilet paper on hand just because we have 4 people in one house, and physically anyway. I mean, if we're counting people and not bodies, it gets higher, but haha. But we have 4 bodies in one house, and so we're always careful to make sure that we have extra in case, so we don't have to run to the store mad dash because we've run out of toilet paper. But yeah, things are a little nuts right now. And I mean, I understand psychologically why people are going after the toilet paper. It's because not running out of toilet paper is something they can control. It makes them feel safer and calmer. But at the same time, the more they panic buy, the more everyone else panics, because then there isn't any. So it just kind of creates a self-defeating cycle. It's really not a good thing. Hannah Frampton, Jen, very true. I have seen some people doing lively, helpful things. That's so nice. Yeah, it is. It's very nice to see lovely, helpful things. Yes, it's very helpful to see people doing all of these helpful things and helping others. It really helps restore your faith in the general humanity that a lot of people are, going out of their way to help others. Sorry, girlish. How have you all been, Kit? Hope all is well inside and outside. Well, we've been doing all right. We're still doing therapy online right now via telemedicine with our therapist. And we've been doing some really tough trauma work lately. And not gonna lie, the whole being stuck inside all of the time is stressful. It's stressing us a little bit. And, my husband is stressed and my daughter is stressed, and it's not the greatest. I mean, thankfully we can communicate with friends and loved ones over video chat. Thank goodness for technology. But it's definitely adding a little layer of stress to things. So we're just kind of trying to take it one day at a time and make sure everybody gets to have their own space, and trying to give everybody time to decompress and take it easy, because otherwise it gets to be a little much. I love my family, but I can only spend so much time around the same people until I just, want to go hide in a closet somewhere. But I digress. The rest of us are pretty much just kind of taking it one day at a time and seeing how everything goes. What with the trauma work we're doing right now, a lot of the others inside are working through some of the stuff that we've been dealing with that. And we've been having a lot of internal meetings trying to figure out different things right now. So we're handling it as best we possibly can, basically. Hannah Frampton, what sort of apprenticeships were you looking at, if you don't mind sharing? Oh, looking at electricians apprenticeships, looking at a dog grooming apprenticeship. Pretty much if there was an apprenticeship and we were qualified to do it, I applied. The goal is just to have something that's good, steady income, that will allow us to get out of the house and interact with other people more outside of the house, because, right now we're fairly stuck. Even outside of the coronavirus, we've been stuck at home a lot. And we figured it would be good for our mental health if we got out and interacted with other people more. Jen Scriven just found out a couple of months ago that we're a system on top of autistic teletherapy for now. Any advice for 51-year-old new system? Our advice would be take it slow. It's a marathon, it's not a sprint. You don't have to try to rush to do everything right now. The biggest thing is try to build safety and communication for yourself and all of your system mates. That is the biggest thing to do, is just try to help everyone feel safe, try to help everyone figure out a way that they can communicate. It may take time to build internal communication. Some people have better internal communication from the start than others, so it's really going to depend on you. But journals, video messages, post-it notes, whatever works for you guys individually as a system is whatever is your best option. So find a way to communicate, let everybody talk, let everybody get out whatever they need to get out, and deal with whatever fears they may be dealing with, and just take it easy on everybody, take it slow. Try to remember that everyone is there for a reason. Even if someone seems scary or unpleasant, try to remember that they're behaving that way because that is what they feel is best to keep your system safe. They're not doing it to make your life harder. They're doing it because that's what was needed at the time, or that's the way they figured out how to cope at the time. And overall, just try to show everybody the same respect and love that you would give a friend that you really care about, and try to meet them at their level. So if a person is very young in your system, interact with them the way you would with a child that age. If a person is older, interact with them that way. Treat them according to their age with respect, and just try to give everybody time to do the things that they want to do within reason, as long as they're safe, and just work on building that communication. That is our overall recommendation. Now, hold on, I'm going to have to scroll up here a little bit. Irvin, how can you tell it's Kit? I don't remember them saying this printing. Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, it's me. It's Kit. Anybody who's been watching long enough can usually tell when it's me, because I'm fairly easy to notice. Because a lot of us are very overt when we're being ourselves, and very covert when we're around outside people. That's actually one of the things that we've been asked before is, because a lot of us have very different accents or different mannerisms or things like that, how are we in the regular outside world? And in the regular outside world, we're very hush-hush. We are not obvious as a system unless we are with someone that's safe to be around and be open with. Otherwise, we all present as one person when we're out and around other people, because it's just what's safer. This is a covert disorder in and of itself. Even if a system is more overt in presentation, we tend to be more secretive and whatnot. I mean, secretive is not really the right word, I guess. Covert is a better word, around anyone that we don't know well. So, yeah. Sorry, I forgot to mention it was me. Sorry, girlish, I guessed. In the words of Peridot, it's subtext. Yeah. I tend to be fairly obvious with the subtext, so yay. Jen Scriven, hearts to your daughter too. Oh yes, thank you. We appreciate that. We will definitely pass along the well wishes. Irvin, guess I'm too new here for that. Discovered the channel yesterday. Yeah, it takes time to get to the point where you can tell who it is by mannerisms, but if you watch us long enough, it's usually easier, depending on whether or not they're being obvious that it's them. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Pretty much everybody in our system is really, really good at pretending to be me, because I am the face we show the world, so to speak. I am our host. So, the kids have more trouble because they're younger, but pretty much all of the adults and teenagers are fairly adept at pretending to be me whenever necessary. So, if somebody is out on camera, though, they usually tend to do so as themselves, just because it is nice for everybody to feel like they're in a safe space where they can present as themselves and be themselves without judgment. So, just our little PSA for today. Sorry, Girlish, it's okay. Yeah, definitely, it's all good. Hannah Frampton, that's great that you feel up for joining the workforce. That's a really big step in mental health healing. Fair play, yeah, definitely. Definitely. It's taken us time to get there. It's definitely taken time for us to get to a place where we feel stable enough to go enter into the workforce. I mean, we still have a lot of work to do. There's still a lot of things that we need to work through, especially in our trauma healing, but we have good enough internal communication and cooperation for those of us that I'm in communication with that we feel like we're ready for that. Jen, I recommend a system journal with places for things to talk about in therapy and a place for general and important communication and even tracking switches. We even use different color pens for the mains. From Cini, yes, very good advice. Very good. Yeah, we often end up using the same pen for everybody only because we tend to lose pens. I don't know why, but we do. We will get out like 6 or 7 different pens for everybody to have their own pen, and then inadvertently along the way somewhere somebody loses their pen, and then somehow we always end up with just one pen. I don't know really why that happens, but we do. So we always end up using pretty much one pen that everybody just signs at the bottom who feels comfortable doing so. And thus far, I haven't run into anybody who didn't feel comfortable saying it was them. So, or if they don't know their name or don't want to say it, then they just leave it. And it tends to be somewhat obvious from handwriting, because while all of our handwriting has somewhat of a basis of same-ishness, I guess you could call it, only because we do have the same body, and being on the autism spectrum, certain neurological and muscular difficulties that make our handwriting look a little messy. But it's definitely different enough that you can tell if you're looking at it. Like, Shadow writes only in cursive. I print. Different people write their letters differently. Like, I write a K as lines, whereas Berserker, for instance, will write a K with a loop for a small K, so just little things like that. Cini, at Jen, I also recommend finding chats. It really helps you feel less alone. Definitely. As long as it's a good chat, mind you. Make sure it's a safe space for you as a system, because we have unfortunately run into some chats and support groups that ended up not really being the best space, because there was a lot of behavior going on that was allowed to continue that just made us feel really unsafe. Like, people being able to private message each other in ways that were verbally abusive, things like that. And so, definitely make sure that whatever system, consensus is on what's safe, that you look for chats that feel safe for everyone. Melicor, hi, just managed to drop in. Wanted to say that I really appreciate what you do. Thanks a lot, mate. Oh, you're welcome. Sorry it's taking us a minute to answer everybody. Everybody's talking fast and we're talking, so we're kind of just scrolling down through. We really appreciate that, and thank you so much for your kind words. That is much appreciated. Ken Scriven, I've been binge watching OSDD/DID system channels like Kids and Dissociate, etc. Yeah, that can be very helpful, we found, for feeling less alone. and things like that too. Just FYI to anybody who, needs that information. It's very helpful to see other people who have similar experiences. In fact, that was a big part of what led us to want to make this channel, was watching Multiplicity and me and Dissociated and seeing the things that they were doing and realizing that, hey, we could talk about our experiences. We could help to educate and make a difference and help end this stigma that there is. So, it definitely helped us to feel less alone too. So glad that we're able to do that for other people. Hannah Frampton, how do your animal parts or animal alters do it behaving like you in public, etc.? Well, our fully animal system members are, if you were to compare them to a human in terms of where they're at verbally, socially, etc., they would be at about the level of a young toddler. They're not able to speak any human language. They can make sounds, but they can't talk. So unless there's a situation where we are really triggered into feeling that we're completely unsafe and we must get away right now, or some other situation that triggers them to feel like they need to front, they tend to either be co-conscious with another protector or just watching what's going on, because they are not well suited to presenting as me or any other humanoid individual, especially because they're very overtly different from the rest of us. They, as far as they have explained, they came about to deal with certain situations where it was necessary to feel things in a different way and react in a different way. So they only come out either when a positive trigger happens that brings them out, which doesn't happen too often, and that's usually only at home or in places where they feel safe, or when something triggers them to come out because they feel it's absolutely unsafe, and then they're going to do everything they can to get away from that situation as quickly as possible, which usually involves running unless backed into a corner, in which case they will fight to get out, but only in self-defense. So usually they're not going to front unless it's an absolute emergency. More often than not, one of our other protectors will front or front with them in order to make sure that the situation is as safe as possible and that there's somebody who can verbally communicate, because they are not able to. Jen Scriven, but I feel fake because of being diagnosed so late, lots of denial. As very long-term host, how did I not know I had DID? Well, Jen, I'm going to tell you right now, feeling like you're faking it, if you actually are worried about that right there is a pretty good indicator that you're not faking it, because you'd know if you were. If you were faking it, you would consciously know you were faking it. That's not something you can hide from yourself. And pretty much everyone that we've ever talked to with DID or OSDD deals with periods of feeling like they're faking it, feeling unreal. And we've dealt with it lots too, especially me personally as the host. And I mean, it makes sense. The whole purpose of dissociation is to block out these experiences that your brain felt were completely impossible to deal with and handle at the time. So acknowledging the existence of the DID or OSDD means acknowledging how it happened. And the dissociation doesn't want you to do that. The dissociation wants to keep those things separate. So it's very, very common and very, very normal, as much as I don't like that word, it's very, very typical for people to experience periods of denial, to experience feeling fake. And trust me, this entire spectrum of dissociative disorders, they tend to present covert in public. there are some systems out there who are very overt, even around other people, usually because nobody's aware that there's anybody else at all. Everybody thinks they're the one and only person in the party. But more often than not, there's a lot of inter-system effort to make sure that nobody ever notices as a safety precaution. And we've mentioned before in a couple of videos about amnesia of our amnesia, which is the idea that we don't realize we've forgotten something until something makes it really obvious. We can lose time and not realize that we've lost time. So it's honestly not surprising that you didn't know. Most people don't realize that they're part of a system until something happens that brings that to the forefront. That, you start getting communication with other system members, or, you start hearing about the activities of other system members that lead you to seek out a diagnosis. Most people spend somewhere between 7 and 10 years in the mental health system before they ever get a proper diagnosis of DID or OSTD anyway. So even among professionals, it's hard to detect unless you really know what you're looking for. So don't feel bad. Most people don't realize it, sometimes for a very long time, because that is what the dissociation is there for, is to protect you from the knowledge of the trauma. And so it's going to take however long it takes until your mind feels it's safe to start dealing with that. So trust me, it's not abnormal at all. Hannah Frampton at Jen, I believe that's a very common thing. Don't feel bad for that. Yes, agreed. Like we just said. Jen, that's normal. Denial is normal. It's okay. You're okay. Yes, very much. Laravan, what I often heard was that DID is supposed to be a secret to the host so they can focus on life without being tortured by trauma memories. Yes, that is very true. The host tends to be very unaware, and the host can change over time. You can have one person host for a period of time and then another person host for a period of time, and they may not even have any realization that they have not always been the host. Like, for instance, for me, there's entire years that I have zero memory of. None. I have no idea what was going on. I have no idea what was happening. I have no idea who was hosting at the time. I don't know. I didn't get good continuous memory until I was an adult, physically as well as mentally. And I didn't start having 100% really solid continuous memory until after my daughter was born. Even in college, I missed big chunks, months or weeks or hours at a time. So it's really not abnormal. And the entire reason that we figured out about the whole DID was because right a few months before my daughter was born, we started having some internal communication, and I started hearing other people, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm hearing voices. I must be crazy. Oh no. And I started freaking out and immediately went to go see a professional because I was trying to figure out what the heck was going on. And then, they gave me all kinds of questionnaires and all kinds of diagnostic material and whatnot. And then they're like, oh, you have DID. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, what do I do with that? So it's a thing, yeah. Hosts tend to not know because otherwise, how could they deal? Seeing anyone else can join as well. I'm confused, but okay. Lyra, I heard that too. Yes, that's true, Jim. Stargo, which that's about right. The host is meant to be in the dark so that they can function every day. This is true. Lyra, so not knowing about your DID would mean it's working the way it's supposed to as a coping mechanism. Definitely. See me. At Jen, I'm the host and I felt the same way. How could I not know? We aren't supposed to know. It's all part of it. Definitely. Jen, I appreciate it, Kit. You're very welcome. Jen also says thanks to see me, and see me says no problem. Awesome. Irvin, no offense, just wondering. Coven system, we have a really big system, and I constantly feel like I'm suffocating with how many of us there is. 63, along with altars in our inner world's basement we haven't fully discovered yet. Do you have any advice for big systems who feel frustrated and trapped? Okay, so we are a very large system. We are what is called polyfragmented, which means having 100 or more members of our system. We have somewhere around 900, almost 1,000, including fragments who dealt with one very specific event or one very specific emotion from one very specific trauma event. So we can hardcore relate to lots of people. Things get crowded because just in our front alone, we have like 50 people that continuously communicate and talk and all of that. So hardcore relate. Our advice is try to build up as much cooperation as possible, as much communication as possible. Talk to everybody with kindness and respect. Make sure that you're meeting everybody at their level and try to get everybody to agree to some sort of reasonable way of getting things done. So in our case, and in the case of a lot of larger systems, you don't have every single solitary individual person in the system fronting every day. Now, for some systems, that might not be the case, but for most big systems that we've ever communicated with, including for ourselves, there's usually a group of people that front more often, and then others front as needed based on triggers, positive or negative, or based on a desire to do something specific. So what we've found tends to work best is coming up with, I guess, sort of a schedule, you could say, where you say, okay, here are the things that absolutely must get done in our day-to-day life. And then letting people choose the things that they want to handle or that they're capable of handling. Give everybody the ability to have time outside who wants it and to have, I guess, what you could call a job outside of whatever role it is they play in the system, something that they can do that helps them to feel accomplished and that helps them to feel good about themselves. And then you tend to have a lot less tension because the more communication and cooperation you build, the less tension there is. So just basically ask inside. Ask everybody, what do you need? And then have everybody communicate that however they are able. If they can write it down, that's probably best, because if you actually have a written down list, it'll be a heck of a lot easier to remember. But have everybody write down what it is they need to feel safe, complete, happy, and content. And then work on building those things into your life. Like for us, for instance, we make sure to give the littles time to color and play games and watch television shows that they enjoy, things like that. We make sure that the teenagers have time to listen to music and, you know, have their favorite snacks and watch movies that they like. Different things like that. Build in time for people to do the things that they want to do so that they can feel fulfilled as well. That's our overall advice. Okay. See, you missed the link to the Discord I'm admin of. Oh, okay. Yeah, like Lirvin was saying, links often don't get through YouTube's spam filter, so I didn't even see that there was a link. So sorry about that. I don't see a link anywhere. Yeah, I also have everything enabled, so I'm not really sure what's going on. I can't see anything either. It's possible it's a modern thing for chats, like it's up to the channel owner to allow links or not in their chats and who can post links like a toggle. I have no idea because honestly, I've never disabled anything, including links, so I think it's just YouTube itself. The Coven system, thank you. It means the world to all of us. Oh, you're very welcome. If there's anything else that we can do to ever help anybody, feel free to send us an email. We have our email in our About page. So if there's ever a question you have, even if we can't personally help, we can probably point you in the direction of somebody who can. Or at the very least, we can offer a supportive ear. So if there's ever anything anybody needs to ask us, or like Sini, if you wanted to send that link for the Discord, you could post it in the comments below this when it posts. You could post it in the comments of a different video. You could send it to us in an email, something like that. And we could share it on, say, our Twitter or something like that. You could post it on Twitter. There's lots of different options. So if it's not working here, you can certainly share it a different way. Guess a DM is the best way, yeah. Do you have any advice for someone who's really struggling with fighting switches because they're scared to black out or lose control, etc.? Oh, Hannah. Yeah. I hardcore feel you on that one. I do not like to lose time. I really, really, really don't. It scares me, especially because of so many times that I've woken up and it's years later or months later than I thought it was. I don't like it. What I've had to learn to do is accept that when someone else is out, if I'm losing time, it's for a good reason. That either we have not built up good co-consciousness yet, we don't have good enough communication yet, or whatever it is wasn't something that our brain felt like I could handle at that time. So I've had to kind of learn how to accept when these things happen, as scary as it is, to try to remember that it's there to keep us all safe. And working on co-consciousness really, really does help. If you can work with system mates to build that co-consciousness so that you can share awareness, even if it's just watching what's happening, that can help alleviate that a lot. Like, we've made an agreement in our system that unless it's a traumatic experience, I can watch what's happening. If it's something where they feel like I'm not ready for that information yet, or they don't feel comfortable with me having that information for whatever reason, then I am simply blocked from remembering the specific information. Like in one of our therapy sessions, there were a set of questions that Berserker was answering. She's our primary protector for anybody who does not know that. But she was answering these questions, and these questions were things that she knew would have been triggering to me and to others in the system. So while I can remember that she answered the questions, I can remember her sitting there, I can remember her talking to our therapist, I cannot remember what any of the questions were. And this agreement has really helped with that fear a lot. So if you're able to build that kind of communication and cooperation with your system, it does take time, but it really does help. And in the meantime, just try to remember that if you're losing time, there's usually a good reason for it. Okay, let's see. The Coven system, maybe it's like TikTok chats where the links just show up as normal black text and not an actual link. That's certainly possible. I don't know. Jen, Hannah, I have the same trouble. I've hosted for 35 years, and the thought of totally stepping back is terrifying. Yes, it definitely can be. Like I said, hardcore relate on that one. Do you have advice for fictives who have bad dysphoria when they front? Our Peridot and Mirio Tagata have gotten adjusted to fronting, but Alice is still really scared and upset when she gets triggered. Our advice on that is to try to include things in the environment that can help them feel safe. Try to build a coping box for them, whoever needs it. Try to build in things that make them feel calm, safe, and if money situation allows, we always find allowing people to pick out items for themselves to wear that help them to feel more like themselves is helpful. So if there's anything that they can buy that's not overly expensive or that you could make as a system together that would allow them to feel more comfortable out in the body, that tends to help. Like for instance, right now we don't have a lot of clothes for everybody only because our body grew a lot of muscle and whatnot and broader shoulders and all that, so we weren't able to fit in those things anymore. But we do have a sewing machine, so we're slowly but surely working on making things for people. And of course my husband is part of a system as well, so a lot of times we'll borrow things from them as long as we have the permission of whoever it belongs to. So there's kind of a sharing is caring mentality there. But we tend to allow people to buy things within a reasonable budget that help them to feel more themselves, more happy and stable in the body. Because like, for instance, some of the girls feel a little bit dysphoric in our body, and so we will do things like let them get jewelry or makeup or things that make them feel more comfortable. And some of them don't care at all. So, it's just going to be very individual. But building a coping box, calming activities, calming scents, calming music, helping them to learn grounding techniques, and finding objects that help them to feel more themselves can really, really be helpful. Hampson M, hello. See, I will post under this video. I just know we don't deal with BS, so I know it's at least safe as we can make it. Yes, definitely. Always good to have safe places for people to talk. It's always a good idea. Hannah, I just want to be transparent that the question is on behalf of my brother who's recently diagnosed with DID. I'm not personally a system. Sorry if that was misleading. Oh, no, it's okay. These things happen. We tend to assume when someone asks that question, it's as a system themselves. So that's our erroneous assumption. Sorry about that. But yeah, definitely let your brother know that it's okay to be scared, that it's normal to be afraid, because it's difficult when you lose time. It's scary. But that if he's losing time, there's a reason, and to try to build that co-consciousness, cooperation, and communication between himself and his system mates so that he's able to maintain at least some awareness, which can help alleviate that. We are glad your support for your brother. Tamsin M said that. Yes, definitely. Irvin, message retracted. Message retracted? What? Why does it say message retracted? I'm confused. The Coven system. My boyfriend thinks it's hilarious. We have Alice from Alice in Wonderland in our system now because I was her for Halloween 2 years ago and our internal self-helper collects teacups. Yeah, it's one of those things where every so often you can find a ha-ha moment unedited or OSCD, just because it's kind of one of those, it's amazing what the brain will do. But always remember that everybody exists because it's what your mind needed. So, it's never really all that odd. It's just pretty, I guess, entertaining sometimes to realize what our brain decides is necessary at the time. Anna Frampton, Coven System, it's weird what the brain latches onto. Yep, definitely brains can be crazy. See me, I collect teacups, Kit. Aw, you collect teacups, that's cool. And I think that's fun that you have the same name as me. Thanks, Kit. I'll pass that on to my brother. I'm sure he'll find that comforting. Good, I'm so glad. LOL, that pulled me to the front. Yeah, I have that happen every so often where something pulls somebody straight to the front or something pulls me straight to the front, and it's always just like, oh, hey, what's going on? Like walking by a toy store or candy tends to involve littles suddenly being high, and it's like, oh, okay, well, now I'm watching a small child jump up and down in the middle of a grocery store because they're excited about a candy bar. All right, then. I think it's self-deleted, so maybe Lena felt it wasn't important of no longer keeping the conversation. Oh, okay. Irvin, I'm also a singlet, by the way. I'm like 1 hour and 20 behind live. Oh, or 1 minute and 20 behind live. Sorry about that. Yeah, you can delete messages. Oh, okay. Jen Scriven, advice for dealing with self-harming abuser introjects. Okay. So, in the case of dealing with introjects of abusers, our overall advice is that remember that there is no such thing as a bad system member. There's no such thing as a bad alter. Okay? They exist because that is what your brain felt was necessary at the time to keep you safe. And in the case of introjects of abusers, they exist because your mind felt that it was necessary for that person to continue that abusive behavior to you in the inside because perhaps it would lessen the abusive actions happening on the outside. It's a protective mechanism. So looking at them as a misguided protector who is coping in a maladaptive way, just like you often see with persecutors, we've found is very helpful. Try to talk to them as calmly as you can. Try to build trust with them, and don't be afraid to stand up to them. Don't be mean or hostile or nasty, but don't be afraid to say, I'm not going to tolerate such and such behaviors. Let's find a way for you to meet these needs in a better, healthier way. Work with them. Show them that you're not afraid of them. Because if you act afraid of them or like you don't like them, then you're reaffirming the idea that they're bad people. And if they see themselves that way, they're not going to be willing to cooperate with you. So building trust, building communication, and showing them that you don't view them as an enemy really, really helps. Like we've had plenty of persecutors that we've done that with, and it's made a huge difference. As of right now, I do not have the ability to communicate with the introjects of our abusers that we do have, due to the gatekeeper of our system and various other members feeling that that's not safe. But that is something that they do communicate with these people, and they are working on building that trust and communication with them until such a time as they feel it's safe for more of us in the front to have access to these people. So just remember that they exist for a reason. Don't be afraid to stand up to them, treat them with kindness, and show them that they can be better, that they don't have to do that anymore. The Coven system. All our fictives I had a deep connection to growing up, except for Mirio. I was a Peridot. Kimmy had an obsession with Alice, but Mirio just popped out of nowhere. I love him, but I'm still confused. Yeah, we don't have any fictives that we're aware of, or at least not that I'm aware of, but we definitely have members that have traits that we've always really felt a connection to or admired. So can definitely relate on that note. And we do have some members that I just stop and go, well, that's interesting that you are the way you are. And, it's one of those you just kind of accept everybody as just whatever they are and just move along with that. So really glad to hear that you accept all of your system mates. That's always very important. Irvin was just a dumb joke, didn't want to distract from good discussion. Oh, okay. Here's a heart. Oh, yay for hearts. Hampson M. I removed my message because it was a bunch of accidental letters. Sorry. It's okay. These things happen. Whoa. It's going so fast. Oh, the BF is like, we must only walk on one side of Walmart because if we don't, he's being pulled around by our little for like an extra hour. It's hilarious. Sometimes he's like, steer them away from the shiny. Oh yeah, we can relate to that. We have to watch where we go in certain stores because otherwise we've got a little dragging my husband around or one of his system mates around being like, look at this, look at that, look at this thing. Ooh, look over here. So yeah, and definitely relate about the shiny things because a lot of us really like shiny things. Irvin, I can't see the chat while typing because of mobile. Oh yeah, that happens. Don't worry about that. Jen, we have trouble keeping our abuser interject from harming the body. 2 protectors made them a nice forest in the headspace with a force field to keep me safe. He won't talk to them though. Well, try to remember that when a system member is engaging in harm of the body, they're doing it either because they're in a lot of pain and that's the only way they know how to cope, or because they feel that it's necessary to try to keep the body and the system safe. It's a misguided attempt to protect or a misguided coping mechanism. Try maybe you personally reaching out to this particular system member or group of system members if there's more than one person involved. Try to reach out to them and offer, I guess, what you could call an olive branch. Try to ask them, what do you need in order to be comfortable finding a different way to do things? What do you need in order to feel comfortable moving toward healing? Because just by asking them that question and giving them the space to talk without judgment, that can a lot of times really help to get them to be more cooperative because nobody wants to feel ignored. So definitely try that. And if you guys have a therapist who can help with that communication, that's always really helpful too. Having them be there as a mediator, having them help that individual or individuals learn more appropriate coping mechanisms can be really helpful. But definitely you're going to have to build that trust first. Because it's like anything, nobody's going to listen to somebody they don't trust. So if you show them that you are trustworthy, that you will listen to them without judging them or labeling them, then that can really help them to feel heard, and that can really help them to be more willing to find other ways of doing things. The Coven system, yeah, don't get me wrong, he makes a great protector, but honestly, if we had any characters from My Hero in our system, he was one of the last any of us would have expected. Well, it's great that he's a great protector, and yeah, we can relate to having people in our system that are different than what any of us would have ever expected them to be, but it's one of those things that the brain does what it does. It feels a particular person is necessary for whatever traits they have. And so that is what the brain makes happen. So it's just one of those things that we don't completely understand yet exactly why particular system members develop the way they do, but there's always a reason. It was whatever the brain felt was necessary at the time. Tamsin M, we have a hard time going to Target because the littles want to go to the toy section. They mostly want to look at all the toys that exist, and it can be like 2 to 3 hours before we remember to go shopping. Yeah, we can relate. We have to watch it with the toy section because I have an outside child who also really likes the toys. So you get my daughter and a bunch of littles all together looking at the toys, and we could be there all day. So we've had to make a rule that an older system member must always be present with a little, if not me, then somebody, so that they can steer them back in the direction of going and doing what we need to do. Now, that takes communication. We had to build a lot of good communication before we were able to do that. But if you have that level of communication, definitely a good idea to create some sort of rule, have everybody agree on a rule that works for you, where you can get done what needs to get done and still let the kids look at the toys, because that way everybody gets what they want. Hannah Frampton, I'm sorry if this is a rude question. Do any of you hosts struggle with embarrassment when your little's front in public because your body is behaving like a child in other people's eyes? Yes, that is definitely something that I personally have struggled with in the past. At this point in time, I've gotten to the point that I just decided, you know what, they deserve to be able to be themselves as long as it's safe and as long as what they're doing is not putting us in any danger, then I'm not going to stifle them. Yes, it's still a little awkward to see other people give you the side eye, but I've learned to just accept that, you know what, they didn't get to be kids when we were a kid, so I'm going to let them do what they need to do now as long as it's safe and healthy, and I can live with a little embarrassment. I certainly won't die from it. Jen says, Hannah, yes, so yes, agreement there too. Tansin, oh no, Lirvin, I understood. I was just explaining what happened to me. Okay. Tansin, Hannah, yes, absolutely. And that at Hannah Frampton, yes, one of us has a huge problem with being embarrassed by that. Yeah, it can be a thing. Definitely. The Coven system. Our persecutor is surprisingly not much of a threat to our physical well-being. Our spirit alter, however, is convinced that when fronting, she is still a ghost and has a bad habit of hurting the body. Yeah, that is one of those things where a therapist's help can definitely be a good thing to help show them that regardless of what they are, that the body is still capable of being injured, that the body is still capable of sustaining damage. And so it's important to take care of the body when you're in it. The best way I ever heard it described was, if you're driving a car, you wouldn't intentionally damage the car you're driving. Well, the body's the same way. You don't want to intentionally damage the body because then that makes it harder for you and everyone else to do what needs to be done when they're in the body. So we found that was really helpful, explaining it that way to different system members who had a habit of doing things that were destructive to our body, was that we need the body to be healthy and functional so that we can all do what we need to do. Anna Frampton, thanks for the reply, guys. Was really worried that would sound offensive. Don't worry. Trust me. For us personally, we can't speak for any other system, but for us personally, there's not a lot you could ask us that would offend us. If it crosses a line somewhere, we would tell you. We would just say we're not comfortable answering that. and we would just move on. We're not going to make a big deal out of it. People are allowed to ask questions. That's part of dealing with this problem that is the stigma against DID and OSDD and other dissociative disorders, is being okay with answering a question and giving someone the information so they know. So don't worry, you can certainly always ask us a question. If we're not comfortable answering, we will let you know. Yes, Hannah, seeing does sometimes, and it's not always safe. Yeah, definitely. Fortunately or unfortunately, sorry. Fortunately, unfortunately for us, our SO also just enjoys toys, mostly robots, so we all spend so long there and we get very tired and fed up and want to go home. That was poorly worded. Oh well, yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Some people just like toys. There is nothing wrong with that. And I can understand getting tired of it and being like, I want to go home, because personally, I don't like to shop. I like to go in, get what I'm there for, and leave. But other members of the system, not so much. Other members of the system, they could shop for hours. So we've kind of figured out that we have to compromise. We have to find a happy medium. Let them look at the things they want to look at, but not spend so much time there that we're burnt out or everybody's frustrated. So it's kind of a balancing act. It just takes time and communication to get there. The Coven system. The most embarrassing moment ever for me was when our infant altar got triggered in public. My boyfriend has to pick her up and push us in the cart. Hey, can completely understand why that's embarrassing, but I'm not even going to lie, because we have a back injury. There have been a couple of times I have had my husband push me while I was sitting in the cart just because my back hurt too much for me to walk anymore. So, no judgments. It's completely understandable to be embarrassed, but just remember that for them, they're a little itty bitty tiny person. And it's okay to be taken care of sometimes. And it's okay if people give you weird looks, those people can go away. They don't know what they're looking at or what they're talking about, so don't worry about them too much if you can help it. Then scribbled and covered in the haha face, yeah. Pamsinum, I like that. They didn't get to be kids when we were a kid. That is so true. We are an OSDD system, so there's virtually no amnesia, so it is hard for me to let them be little. Yeah, I can understand why that would be more difficult, especially with that lack of amnesia barrier. It's one of those things you kind of just have to practice. It takes time. It's not an immediate thing. Like I said, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint, and everybody gets there in their own time. It's just one of those things you find ways to work on it until eventually you realize one day it's not really that big of a deal to you anymore. So it just kind of takes practice to get there. Oh god. Okay, there we go. Like that. I feel you, Kevin. Luckily for us, our tiniest doesn't cause trouble unless we forget to eat, so it's easier to predict and head off before it happens. Yeah, for us, our youngest that I'm in communication with is 3. I don't know if we have anyone younger than that. We might. Our fully animal system members behave, well, like animals, but again, they don't tend to front unless it's an emergency. But if, say, one of our very young system members showed up, thankfully my husband and his system mates know that they're just a kid, and to just go on about our day and not make a big deal about it, and just let them be and, do whatever needs to be done. So as long as you have a good, safe person who can help out with that, that's always helpful. The Coven system, it was humiliating to just wake up in a Target shopping cart with a rattle in my mouth. Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine that would be awkward. I have come to, on more than one occasion, in situations that were, quite frankly, mortifying. Like once came to wearing a bright pink frilly doll style dress in public. It was really awkward. I was really, really uncomfortable. But I tried to remember that for the individual person who was out, in this case it was Lo, who was fronting at the time, that it wasn't intended to embarrass me, that it was just her wanting to wear something that felt comfortable and good for her. So I try to just remember that we all share this body, everyone has equal rights to it, and to try to not let it get to me too much. And if something is really, really, really uncomfortable, then I try to just accept those feelings, validate those feelings for myself, journal about why I feel that way and what the, absolute worst case scenario of that kind of situation happening really is. And I tend to realize after doing that that the worst case scenario really isn't all that bad for being embarrassed by a younger system member doing something. So I kind of look at it as a, like I said before, a little embarrassment certainly isn't going to kill me. So I try to just practice acceptance and remember that they have the same rights to the body that I do. And that tends to help. It doesn't mean I never get embarrassed. It just means that I have an easier time accepting it. Jen Scriven sends a heart. Yay for hearts. And a front end. I've got to go get ready for work, guys. Thanks so much for the chat and advice. Have a good day. Night, everyone. Bye, Kit. Thanks. Goodbye. Sorry we're a little far behind here, but have a good day at work. And then everybody's saying goodbye. That is good. Then Scriven, intersection between autism and DID. Yes, there definitely seems to be, in our experience, a lot of people who are neurodivergent also have dissociative disorders or a higher incidence of PTSD, things like that. That is definitely something that we've noticed. Because I am on the autism spectrum, and I am the only one who presents enough, I guess you could say symptoms. I don't really like that word, but enough diagnostic criteria to be diagnosed as being on the spectrum. Everybody else has some things here or there, but they don't meet the full criteria for whatever reason. I'm the only one who does. I don't know. Like, I cannot comfortably make eye contact with people. Just no. I've learned to look at a point in the middle of their forehead, so it looks like I'm making eye contact with them, but I cannot comfortably make eye contact. Whereas other members of the system do that with absolutely no problem. Other members of the system don't have the same sensory sensitivities that I do, things like that. So it's just one of those, the brain is a magical, wondrous thing that seems to be able to do all kinds of stuff that I don't understand. So it is what it is. The Coven system. We have so many awkward switching stories. I could write a book. It's honestly wild. Yeah. Hardcore relate. Definitely. Pam Sinem, I think you should write that book. Agreed. That would be really interesting. I do have a book on DID. Maybe I should make a chapter on awkward switching stories. Hey, that would be good. We'd certainly read it too. It's always good to have more literature out there from systems with DID and OSDD, because it helps people to see that we're just people. So, the more education and information that's out there and available to the public, the better. So if you guys ever want to publish that book, we would fully support that endeavor by buying a copy. It's on a site called Quotive, if anybody knows what that is. I do not know what that is, but I can certainly look into it later. It'd be kind of fun to have a compilation of people's stories of being compilations of people. Yeah, that's kind of a fun way to look at it, because we've had some very interesting moments. Like, one I very vividly remember is coming to in the middle of a conversation where apparently somebody had been in the middle of telling a joke, And then suddenly I'm there and I have no idea what's going on. So thankfully, a friend goes, "So what's the punchline?" And I went, "Oh, I forgot." So yeah, it was rather special in that moment to realize I don't know what's happening. I could email a link to the book if you would like, or just give you our. Oh, go ahead and email a link. That would be great because we always like to have stuff in an actual place we can go find it again because, well, memory problems. If it's not written down somewhere, we tend to forget it. How has being a system made parenting a challenge? Both of mine are adults now. Well, it's made it a challenge in that sometimes being consistent can be really hard. Because when you get influence from other members of the system, say I think one particular way about a particular rule in our house, but somebody else thinks differently about it, and I get influence from that person, it can be hard to be consistent. Add memory issues and the fact that I have to write the rules down to remember what the heck they even are. And sometimes it can be difficult to keep things consistently the same day to day in terms of what is expected. But that's why I write things down. So the general consensus we've made is if I make a rule because she's my child, that's the rule. If my husband makes a rule because she's his child, that's the rule. Period. So everybody's gotten pretty good about respecting what our wishes are in terms of how we do things with her. And if somebody's not sure and they're fronting, they will check with either me or somebody else who can get a hold of me if for whatever reason I'm completely gone. They'll ask somebody who knows what I would do in that situation so that they can keep it consistent, but keeping it consistent all the time is hard. It also can be hard sometimes to manage frustration because, say, for instance, my daughter is doing something, like most kids are wont to do that's really annoying. It's not intended necessarily to be annoying unless she's mad, and sometimes then it really is intended just to be annoying. But say she's making a noise over and over and over again. Now, I can generally walk away, stay fairly calm, but certain members of the system really get frustrated with all of the noise. And because of my sensory sensitivities, I have to walk away or put on a pair of headphones, or I will get frustrated with it myself. But we've had moments where somebody shows up long enough to tell her, "Would you knock that off?" And then I'm like, "Oh, sorry, let me rephrase that. Could you please stop doing that?" And so it can make it difficult sometimes communicating those things. Like, for instance, a lot of times our littles like to play with her. And so, there's always an adult paying attention to make sure, they're being monitored because, no small children running around by themselves. That's just not a good or safe idea. But there have definitely been times when we've had to remind younger system members that if they're mad at her, just say, "I don't want to play anymore," and switch out with somebody else. Because we don't ever want somebody to say something hurtful to her, including me or anybody else, because, we do all share the same body. We do all share the same face. As much as we can definitely look and sound different from each other by the way we hold the body, by the way that we move our face, we still don't want it to feel like she's being treated badly. So we're very careful to manage that kind of frustration. Not gonna lie, there have been times that we have said things that we definitely regret. I'm pretty sure even parents without DID do that though. So, we try to give some sort of acceptance, leeway for everybody to make mistakes. But there have definitely been times when one of our particular system members, who's never been featured in a video, and I'm not going to say his name because he's not given permission to do that, but he has definitely, in a moment of panic due to a trigger, done or said things that I later regretted and had to apologize for. So it makes it hard keeping consistent and managing stress, basically, is the best way. And we do actually have a video on parenting with the idea if you want to watch that. That's on our channel, so you can look at that too. But yeah, keeping things consistent and managing stress is definitely the hardest. All right, great. I'm so curious. I'd love to peek at your books or book. We Autistics Loves Rules and Lists, lol. Yep. I'm very big on rules and lists and all of these things. And interestingly enough, my daughter is also on the spectrum, and she very much likes rules, but that doesn't mean she wants to follow them. She likes to enforce the rules on other people. But there are certain things where if it goes counter to what she wants to do, then she doesn't necessarily want to do that. So it's kind of a learning curve, because she, for instance, is very sensory seeking, while I'm very sensory avoiding. She tends to be a little bit more oppositional or defiant when she's angry, whereas I was very compliant and just did whatever I was told. So it's one of those every individual is an individual kind of an instance where, I can relate to some of her experiences well enough to understand why she might be doing something, but that doesn't mean that I always understand everything that she does, if that makes sense. Hamson, it is very difficult parenting with OSDD, and I imagine amnesia makes it more complicated. Oh yeah, the amnesia does make it hard. It makes it difficult a lot. But that's why we as a system have agreed to write things down, because otherwise we would be a mess. And my entire function in our system is to be functional. So I'm pretty good at just figuring out a way to knuckle down and get it done. But, it doesn't mean I don't need help from the others in the system to cooperate with me and do those things. But, it's just one of those things you kind of try to figure it out. And having a kid actually is usually pretty grounding for me, because, she needs me. So that tends to help me stay present. But triggers do still happen, and we do our best to mitigate the effects of that on her by walking away and dealing with the trigger in private, if at all possible. So yeah, it's a thing. It's a learning curve. Okay, so the Coven system, you're sharing about where the book is. Jen, scribbling the dichotomy with your daughter sounds eerily like me and my youngest. Oh, yeah. I've heard that from other people too, that, it seems like when you have parents who are neurodivergent, it seems like if their kids are also neurodivergent, they tend to be neurodivergent in a way that is somewhat opposite from their parents. I think that's just nature's way of trying to balance things out. I don't know. Linda says, thank you to the Coven system. I'll go peek. Awesome. Thank you for supporting us from the Coven system. Yep. Always good to support other systems, so definitely yay. Woo for supporting and reading materials, and definitely make sure to send us that link, please, and we will check that out. And we have been at this for about an hour and 24 minutes, and it is getting late, and I need to go eat lunch. So I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye. And if anybody has any last minute questions or concerns or whatever, feel free to ask them now. If you think of one later, feel free to email it, and we will get back to you as soon as possible. But I definitely have to go make some lunch. Is it normal to have twins in your system? We have a pair of twins. We've got a couple of twins that I'm aware of. I have not actually directly spoken to them, but I have seen them internally, so yes, I do know they're there. So it's not abnormal. We've heard from others that they also have twins in their system. So as far as we can gather, that's really not all that strange. Jen Scriven, thank you, Kit. You're very welcome. Oh my goodness, I am so sorry. I cannot pronounce this very well. I'm going to just read the second half of that. Chaya, is that how you say that? Hello, I'm new to this channel. Sometimes I'm talking to someone and then sort of forget what is going on and cannot focus on what I'm saying. I don't have DID, but I think I may be dissociated. It is certainly possible that that is what is happening. In order to find out for sure, you would need to seek the advice of a professional who can get you a proper diagnosis. But if you are concerned that you may be experiencing symptoms of dissociation, definitely go see a professional, because it is not a good idea to leave dissociative disorders untreated. It can definitely make your life hard. And if it's not dissociation and it's something else, it's still a good idea to know what's going on and get the proper treatment so that you can live your best life. Ligna, thanks for having this live stream. You are very welcome. Tamsinum, thank you. You're welcome. The Coven system, have a nice day, Kit. Oh, thank you. You have a nice day too. Tamsinum says that sounds like dissociating. Yes, it definitely does. And yes, dissociating is something everybody does, and it's definitely normal. Yes, dissociating in and of itself is normal to a degree. If it becomes a problem in your life, if it becomes maladaptive, or if it's adding distress, that's when it becomes disordered. So it's definitely a good idea if you are concerned that you are experiencing disordered dissociation, not just your typical daydreaming or highway hypnosis or whatnot. It's definitely good to seek a professional's opinion. Regular dissociation, perfectly normal. If it's causing distress or dysfunction, then it's disorder. Smiley face from Tamsinum. Yay, smiley faces. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and end the stream, and if anybody has any other questions, comments, etc., feel free to either leave them in the comments below or to email them to us, and we will get back to you as soon as we can. So you guys have a good day. Bye.